Trey Hendrickson has opted for a surgery that will shut down his season. Does that mean he's played his last snap as a Cincinnati Bengal? Certainly possible. Let's break that down.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the number one sports podcast network in the land. Thanks to you, the everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On Bengals their first listen. He's James Rapien, I'm Jake Liscow, and we've been Locked On Bengals since 2016, your best one-stop shop for all things Bengals online. And it's not a day of good news today. I'll tell you that from the jump. If you came here looking for a pick-me-up, it's not going to be a theme throughout this episode, at least from my end, James. Maybe you'll be the optimistic side of today's episode, but we got Trey Hendrickson shutting his season down, getting that core muscle surgery on Tuesday. The Bengals cutting Jermaine Burton after he was suspended for Sunday's game. Tee Higgins is back in the concussion protocol. It's just like thing after thing, it felt like on Monday that we're now going to discuss in this episode. And the last shout out here before we dive into the Trey Hendrickson topic to start is we did just launch the Everydayer Club. I've been talking about it kind of as just a side for a while, but it's now a real thing. If we're your first listen of the day, if we are your everyday routine, well, you can take it up a level and go ad free. If that's something you really want to do, you can join the Everydayer Club. You can get Locked On Bengals with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more. It's just $5 a month or $50 a year. Save a little bit of money if you go for the full year. You can check the link in the show notes to learn more. You can check out social media to learn more. There are a lot of ways for you to get into this. There's some ways for you to get it for free, to try it out for the first month that are out there on social media that you might be able to find. That might be gone by the time you hear this, but it might not be. That's a limited time opportunity. But James, let's dive into the Trey Hendrickson news. Monday, a report that he was going to go see a specialist after Zach Taylor said he was going to go see a specialist, and then Adam Schefter saying he's planning to get a surgery. It's going to be a 6 week recovery, and that's going to shut down the season.
Yeah, well, hold on now, pessimistic Jake. If they make the playoffs and they win, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Trey Hendrickson's probably not playing for the rest of this year, and it just continues the odd situation that is. And I'm going to tell you what I think, purely think. This has nothing to do with what necessarily happened. I don't know. Zach Taylor obviously tight to the vest. We haven't heard from Trey since before the deadline. But as someone that talks Bengals every single day, I'm comfortable saying this. And if I'm way wrong, Trey, sorry. If I'm way wrong, Bengals, sorry. I think the Bengals kept Trey off of injured reserve because they thought he was going to be able to come back and play through this core muscle injury, whatever other ailments that he was dealing with. And Trey, on the other side, said, I'm not cleared or I'm not comfortable to play or whatever the case is with his camp. And it drug out, and it was weird. And Zach Taylor didn't feel comfortable because he didn't want to misspeak. And so he just didn't say anything. And so the team thought he could play. He didn't think he could play. And ultimately, he goes and sees a specialist because it's not getting better. A new specialist, and it's like, it's time to undergo surgery. I don't know if any of that's true. That's what I think happened. Just looking at this 50,000 feet. And look, we haven't heard from Trey since before the deadline. That was a long time ago. That was 6 weeks ago, right? What we asked Zach Taylor constantly about Trey Hendrickson, and I could tell you that behind closed doors, he's not saying anything either to people that would be in the know. So this has been a really weird process. But ultimately, this probably means that Trey Hendrickson, and there's an off chance that it's not the case, but probably means Trey Hendrickson played his last down as a Bengal. I'd say arguably the best free agent signing in Bengals history, probably the best free agent signing in Bengals history. 4 sacks this year. I don't necessarily see them using the franchise tag on him now. Much more risky to do it versus doing it if he had 10 sacks, 12 sacks, 15 sacks. He had 4 sacks this year, obviously missed the majority of the season due to injury. Feels like he's going to get to free agency. And if he does, I think he ends up signing elsewhere.
Yeah, I think fair to say best free agent signing in Bengals history. I mean, he's an all-pro. I don't know how many free agents they've signed that have gone on to be all pros. He is pretty high up on the Bengals all-time sack leaderboard and did it in like half the games of the next guy.
Yeah.
Not, I'm embellishing a little bit there, but his sack rate per game is astronomical when you look at Bengals history. Going to go down as one of the best pass rushers in Bengals history. The thing about this whole situation that I keep coming back to, James, is that we just don't know what happened. The injury was a back injury, and then he got hit in the back, and it looked like he was in a lot of pain after he came back too early. Took a blind side shot to the low ribs, to the back, when he was already engaged on a play, and got up and was hardly able to walk off the field. And then we saw the injury classification change over time: back, hip, pelvis. Then the report about the core muscle surgery. We've talked about this before. The everydayers have heard me go through this timeline before. The injury classifications changed over time. We got some additional information over time that this is going to eventually cause Trey Hendrickson to need a surgery. Then there's this idea that, he's trying to let it get better without the surgery because maybe he can get back faster that way, right? Maybe he can play through this thing. Maybe they don't know that it's a core muscles thing at first. So the timeline that is, I think, the most generous reading of this for Trey is that initially they thought it was whatever his back injuries have been in the past that he has been able to play through, maybe miss a game here or there, but has been able to play through in the past. And then they realized a couple of weeks into this thing, when they didn't put him on IR, there's actually a need for surgery to repair this core muscle injury. And then they realized, but maybe if you give it a couple more weeks and do this physical therapy and rest this way, maybe you'll be able to get back. And then they gave it those couple of weeks and it didn't work. And they kept giving it a couple of weeks and discovering new things. And it just kept not getting better. And then he just decided to go for the surgery now, because maybe this is the amount of time they said, like, if it's not better by December 9th, you better get that surgery. Maybe. We don't know. We haven't had the information along the way to suggest that that's exactly the case, but it's plausible to say that that's what happened, is that they just kept learning a little bit more as things went. Because if they'd known right away this thing's going to require surgery after the season, could have just gotten the surgery right away. And hindsight, obviously, benefit of hindsight saying that. But if he gets that surgery right away and then takes 6 weeks, he's probably playing right now. Now, does it matter? I don't know, but could have gotten the surgery right away if they knew right away.
Sure. And core muscle stuff is weird. It is unique. I know of multiple players that have ultimately had core muscle surgery where the initial injury feels like it's somewhere else, and it takes some time to evaluate it and find it and all of those things. And it can be unique as a high level athlete, especially dealing with something like this and just diagnosing it and finding it. And that might be why it was different on the injury report. Look, at this stage at 4-9, I'd probably get the surgery too. I want a fully healthy offseason. I would, I think Logan Wilson was in this position last year. And after they fell to 4-8, he had the surgery. It might've been a little before that, but it's one of those things. And I know this, Trey will tell you, and this is just from covering him for the past 5 years. Trey will tell you, I'm going to do everything I can to play. And so whatever the case is, sucks, because this is probably it for him in Cincinnati. I think things could change. Some circumstances could change, or maybe that doesn't happen. It's December. March is a long way away, but as of now, it feels like he's done in Cincinnati. And it just sucks that this is how it ends. That it wasn't a sack in the playoffs to get them back to the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl or something like that. It's against the Jets in the first half. And who knows with all these one-score games, if Trey makes a difference, he probably does in some of these, but leaves at the end of the first half, and maybe we never see him again in stripes.
Bit of an iconic game, at least, for Trey Hendrickson to go out in for the Cincinnati Bengals for all the wrong reasons in 2025. But one of them,
Flacco hurt, Trey hurt, meltdown late. Like that Jets game is just a nightmare.
Terrible. And one of the themes of the season, one more point on Trey Hendrickson that I want to dive into a little bit more, James, after this in a minute here, is just there are a lot of people asking, does this make it more likely that Trey returns to the Bengals? Does this make it more likely? And you've alluded to it a little bit here, but let's dive into that a little bit more directly, and then we'll get to the Jermaine Burton release. We'll get to Tee Higgins going back to the concussion protocol. Those topics coming up next.
There's no reason to let big wireless drain your wallet, especially during the holidays. Right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All of their unlimited plans are 50% off. That means you can lock in 3, 6, or even 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. It's the easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it the Scrooge treatment with Mint Mobile. And what makes this even better is how simple Mint makes it to switch. There's no contracts. There's no nonsense. Real savings, real quality service. Switching to Mint lets you keep your same coverage for a lower price. Setup takes just a few minutes. You can bring your own phone, your own number without any issues. The service is fast, super reliable, even on the go. And it feels good knowing you're not overpaying for wireless. Turn your expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. Shop Mint unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plan required 15-month equivalent. Taxes and fees on initial plan term only. Less than 35 gigabytes or more than 35 gigabytes may slow when the network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com.
So the question is, Trey Hendrickson didn't play a whole lot this year.
Nope.
How does that affect his price tag? How does that affect his market league-wide? How does the league receive how Trey Hendrickson has gone about this season with just, even if he did everything right, being unable to play, having another injury on the wrong side of 30 now, unable to put together another season like we've seen from him? I will say that when he was on the field, when he was healthy early in the season, it looked like Trey Hendrickson. But when you miss most of the season, that can impact your market. And so the question then becomes, does he suddenly become more affordable for the Bengals? Does he become a candidate for a bet on myself, prove it year, 1-year deal kind of thing for the Bengals? That is not something I imagine Trey wants to think about. That's more for players coming off their rookie contract. But these are the questions that people have been asking a little bit in the wake of this news, James.
Yeah, and I get it. I do. I think if the relationship, because it has gotten strained, you can tell it's gotten strained. If that can smoothen out some, then maybe there is a path. Now, over the past 8 months, 9 months, it's 8 months probably, we've had Trey go on national shows. We've had Trey show up at practice in May, late April, early May. I think it was early May. And say how Zach Taylor's message bothered him about minicamp. Like, there was a lot here. It was emotional. Mike Brown even saying how emotional Trey can be when it comes to this stuff. So can they get past that? The Bengals are emotionless. They're a robot, so possibly they can. Will Trey, or is he like, man, I am out of here? I think he loves the fan base. He loves being a Bengal. But I think the past couple of years have been frustrating for him. And so I would never say never, Jake, especially when it comes to something like this, because it can change very, very quickly. We're a year and like a week removed from Joe Burrow keeping Tee Higgins in place, right? After that Dallas game, he's like, oh, I'm going to make sure Tee Higgins is here long-term. And we're going to talk about T coming up. But like, these things can change in a hurry. And so who's making the decision? Who's around? Who's not? What happens the final 4 weeks? What is Trey open to? What are the Bengals open to? There's so many questions. So I wouldn't completely rule it out, but it does feel unlikely.
Yeah, I think never say never is about the right place to be here. Like, it's possible.
Yes.
But it does not feel likely. Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Maybe.
It'd be fun. Can you imagine? Trey Hendrickson signs a 2-year, $55 million deal with the Bengals or whatever it is.
They're going to get to a point where they're going to need a pass rusher this offseason. And that's where the scenarios come up. Like, what better way to spend your money? You got a guy you're familiar with, a guy that can be productive, a guy that is probably the best on the market. And so that's where I think people are coming from here. Like, what else are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to bring Joseph Osai back and bank on Shamar Stewart figuring it out after a lost rookie season for the most part, dealing with his own injuries. Going to draft another one.
I'm hoping we get good news on Shamar this week and he can play. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I would love for it to happen. He needs it.
He needs a development, right?
Needs it.
Yeah. What happens between now and the offseason? Another huge factor, as you point out. Yeah. Hard to predict, but doesn't feel remotely likely right now. Feels like the way this season went, the way last offseason went, the way 2 offseasons ago went, the way 3 offseasons ago went, this thing is going to be very difficult to mend the relationship between the team and Trey Hendrickson. The relationship that was unable to be mended between the team and the player involves Jermaine Burton, who has had more than his share of issues with the team, missing meetings over his time in Cincinnati, and eventually gets suspended last week, a couple days ago for the game in Buffalo, and the Bengals just move on Monday. James, one of the worst picks in the draft in the Zach Taylor era, one of the worst picks ever for the Bengals. They've certainly had significantly worse in earlier rounds. Don't get me wrong, but this staff at least had a pretty strong track record of getting it right with offensive skill players, and they were unable to corral Jermaine Burton and point him in a direction that would make him a productive football player on Sundays.
Yeah, look, a lot of people are going to say, James, well, what happened? We don't know the Jermaine Burton story. And we do. We do. We don't need every detail. It's not this big conspiracy theory. It's not this big, no one wanted Jermaine to be right more than Zach after he's caught pounding on his chair and looking more like a kid on Christmas getting a Super Nintendo, a 5-year-old James getting a Super Nintendo on Christmas. Best Christmas ever, by the way. Like, that's what he looked like. And it was one of the biggest swings they've taken. And everything you got with Jermaine in year 1, you got in year 2, it was just less loud because everyone had grown sick of it. You didn't get as much reporting on it because it was the same stuff. It was showing up late and missing meetings and missing planes and missing this and that's it. And if you go back to the draft, the Nick Saban clip right after he's drafted, he's like, Jermaine just needs to be consistent. It's the same issue that he's always had. Maybe he'll figure it out. Because I get why the Bengals took the risk. They said, all right, well, we may need to replace Tee Higgins. And this guy can play in the slot. He can kick outside. He's got unique, rare downfield ability where his hands are just super strong downfield in contested catch situations. And he might be able to develop into a real dude opposite Jamar Chase. And then he got here. And they were like, what the bleep? And it never felt good, ever. That's why he was running with the third team in the preseason and out there as a rookie late in those preseason games when he put up those numbers. Last year, obviously, showed up late multiple times right before he's about to get a ton of targets and he's in the game plan and all of those things, like back-to-back days. I'm not even sure that was officially reported. I can now. Why not? What's it going to hurt? He's just been that way the whole time. And I mentioned to someone when T was out? No, when Jamar was suspended, I was like, oh, is this Jermaine's time? And it was not a coach. It was a player. And the player was like laughed about it. Like, this wasn't like the coaching staff just hated Jermaine and he's like a martyr or something, sacrificial lamb because they're fresh. No, like no one in the building respected his work ethic or his dedication, like nobody. And that to me is telling. Like, it wasn't like a player was like, oh, he can ball. He's doing the right things. I haven't heard that once this year. Like once since training camp started. And I think that's important because you would hear that. I don't think it would take long for me to hear that about Mitch Tinsley or Kendrick Pryor or whoever, regardless of skill set, regardless of talent level.
There's a little bit more here. There's the Joe Burrow comments that were the beginning of training camp is probably the last time we heard an endorsement
Sure.
Jermaine
Right at the
Burton.
beginning, that's when you're at the begin. It's like, man,
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully he could keep it up type thing. And that's when it gets
It's
hard, is when training camp starts.
Yeah, it's the consistency, right? And there's the offseason decision to keep Jermaine Burton. There's him sticking around until now. There's what's going to happen if he catches on to one of these other teams that's desperate for wide receiver help, like in Kansas City or something like that. They obviously have no issue taking on some challenges at the wide receiver position. There's a little bit more in Jermaine Burton. Tee Higgins is back in the concussion protocol. How are Tee Higgins and Jermaine Burton related? That's another topic I'll throw out there.
They're cousins?
Not
Oh,
familially,
oh,
but relationally. It
oh.
doesn't really help define it, I guess. But
Related?
a little, a little bit more on
Cousins.
Burton, and then on to the Tee Higgins topic here coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is a one-stop shop for all things sports betting, and of course, NFL Sundays move fast, and it's Bengals, it's Ravens. The Ravens 2.5-point home or road favorites. Excuse me. The Bengals road underdogs this week, home underdogs this week. Why am I getting this wrong? The game is at Paycor Stadium. The Bengals are 2.5-point underdogs, and whether it's something as simple as the spread, whether you want to go with the money line with the Bengals, maybe you want to pair Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, especially with Tee Higgins and protocol, with the same game prop bet. They have all of those things. You can live bet. Obviously, games can turn at the drop of a hat or the float of a ball in midair to Jamar Chase with like 5 minutes and 40 seconds left in the game. The point is games change fast, and FanDuel is the perfect place to jump in on all the live spreads, all of the different parlays, money lines, player props, and more. All you have to do to get started is go to FanDuel.com. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action, go to FanDuel.com, place your bets, NFL live bets all season long, including this week, Bengals, Ravens at Paycor Stadium. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
Remember Isaiah Williams, James?
Yeah, I called him a roster lock at one point in camp. Roster lock. It did not work out that way.
Didn't have the best preseason on the field, and as a result,
Great in practice. Great in practice.
Yeah, it was great in practice. I mean, in the games and the things that you got to play well in the games, right? You've heard this coaching staff say it before. You've heard every coaching staff say it. You can be you've heard Joe Burrow say it. You know, you can be great in the classroom, you can be great on the practice field, but you got to be able to do it in games when it's real football. And Isaiah Williams has been a contributor for the Jets. Not a very good football team. Isaiah Williams is making plays over there. The Bengals made a decision to keep last year's third-round pick that didn't really have a lot of support in the building then either.
No.
But had some. There was some positive momentum for Jermaine at the beginning of training camp. I mentioned Joe Burrow's comments. And let Isaiah Williams walk. And now Jermaine Burton is also gone. Just kind of too bad in hindsight. It's a little bit of hindsight, but not entirely hindsight. This wasn't unpredictable at the time. It's worst case outcome, I think, but not outside of the realm of possibility at the time either. Just something that didn't really want to acknowledge as a possible path because it's the worst case outcome. It's just, unfortunately, it was realistic then, and it's what's happened.
This is why you don't invest a third round pick in a guy that you think has this floor. Like, it was such a huge swing where it's like, if everything goes right, he can replace Tee Higgins, right? If it goes half wrong, then maybe he's a serviceable deep threat. If it goes all the way wrong, he doesn't make it through year two. And I don't think they felt like there was a scenario where with Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins, Troy Walters, their culture, that it could go this wrong. And some guys just, they're not built for it. And maybe Jermaine, who's young and talented, figures it out. But the Jermaine they received with the 80th pick in the third round, there was just no shot. It was just never going to happen. I mean, it's a pretty easy landing spot to come in, man. Player-friendly coach, offense that loves to throw the ball. You don't have to be the one or the two. And all the basic stuff that you would expect anybody to do as an adult, certainly an NFL player. It was a struggle. So yeah, the Isaiah Williams part of it is painful, especially because he did make it to the practice squad. And then he got picked up when the Jets made their move. Their punt returner fumbled week 1, week 2, something like that early in the season. And then they moved on and they went and they get Isaiah Williams. And he was someone I was excited about. And that's how it works. That's how the cookie crumbles, Joe Burrow quote. But when you invest as high of a pick as you did in Jermaine, you can't give up after 1 year unless it's just catastrophic, like even more so. Like, I don't blame the Bengals for doing that because they had already invested too much. And that's the problem. That's what it goes back to me, is you're already too in on a stock that was you knew at the time could bottom out and you could be left with nothing. And so you had to kind of hold on and hope that it rebounded. And obviously he didn't.
I mean, we've seen them do this with Jackson Carman. We've seen them do this with Zach Carter. And Carter was, on-field performance reasons that they end up moving on there. But yeah, I mean, they give these guys, and most teams give these guys multiple chances. It's just a shame that it didn't work out. The fit between Burton and the organization, whether the organization did enough or not, there's a lot of speculation on both sides of how much support the Bengals provided to Jermaine Burton. Whatever it was, it didn't work.
Yeah.
What's that?
I don't know. I get that. I get why people look at it that way outside.
Oh yeah. I don't have anything to tell people about that. I just know that it is speculative in all directions.
Mm-hmm.
Tee Higgins is back in the concussion protocol, James. There were many, speaking of speculation, speculating that after Tee reached for his head at least twice after it hit the ground hard on different plays in that game, that he was concussed again, managed to get through the concussion evaluations on the sideline from the independent evaluator on Sunday, reported symptoms after the game, back into concussion protocol this week. This is just one of those you hate to see it kind of moments, right? He gets cleared for the concussions. He's double catching the ball the entire game, both before he hit his head the first time and after. Makes a sick one-handed touchdown catch deep downfield after returning after 2 different evaluations. But man, in hindsight, it sure does look obvious that when you reach for your head after your head hits the ground, you probably shouldn't go back in the game.
Yep.
It's not a very good feeling to know that he's back in concussion protocol. People have invoked Tua Tagovailoa and him returning too soon, and I do see the parallels. I hope he gets right. I hope he gets better. I wonder if there will be an investigation into what happened. It sounds like, the NFLPA and the NFL issued a joint statement saying that he cleared protocol twice, so maybe that's it. Yep. There's no investigation coming, but it's one of those moments for brain safety that just, like, for this league in the last few years, it just looks real fishy. Like something went wrong in the process is what it feels like today.
Well, clearly the protocol isn't exact. It isn't 100%. The Tee Higgins, the first time, the independent, and it's independent. It's not a team doctor, someone like that evaluating. It's someone that is just there to evaluate head injuries. Said, all right, T, come on. And went through protocol. Second time, T was like, yeah, can you check me again? And apparently got checked again. So 2 different times was evaluated during that game. Passed both. Look, it's tough. And I get it. I get it. I hope we don't see T, obviously, this way. I really don't, because you just don't want to risk it again. And it's weird how much we've seen him hit his head now for 2 weeks. Like it just seems like you do it once as a receiver, and now you're in these awkward spots, and it's just it almost seems like it's just more likely to happen right now. So you want him to get right, because he's 25, 26 years old. And I think 26 now. And just, football is football. And here's the other thing. It wasn't the Super Bowl. It was a big game for the Bengals for sure. And he was awesome. I actually don't even know how he made the one-handed catch. But after he came out and was evaluated the first time, he had 2 drops. Kind of wasn't on the same page with Joe on the one. Like, you could just kind of see it's like, this doesn't feel like T. And the drops were like, him pushing the ball down when he goes to catch it. You know, it just seemed a
he's
little
double catching it.
weird.
The reason I brought that up is because he was doing it before the first head bang on the ground too. Like he was having issues all day, so it didn't get better, obviously, but he was having that issue before the first head bang too, from what I recall.
Yeah, and who knows, right? But it's just you want him to be good.
Mhm.
And I did talk to him late in the week before he talked to reporters, and he felt good. The doctors, felt good about where he was at, and it's just 2 concussions in 2 weeks. I know I saw some speculation that could cost him multiple games, maybe the season. We'll see if that's the case. So I hope whatever it is, whenever he comes back, he's just fully healthy, because you don't want to keep playing with this issue. And by playing with this issue, I mean trying to suit up when you're taking this risk. You take this risk all the time anyway as a football player, but it's obviously much bigger when you're already dealing with a head injury.
It's been a pretty tough season. And Tee Higgins, if this is it for his season, because why would you bring him back? I mean, I guess it depends on what
They might win the next 2.
I guess
know.
It depends on how it shakes out, but
Yeah.
T right now has played in 12 games, same amount of games as Jamar Chase this season.
Been good.
Hasn't had any of those lower body soft tissue injuries this year. Now dealing with concussions, but again, it's going to be a season that's cut short for T. 667 yards on 46 catches, 9 touchdowns. Leads the team in touchdown catches by nearly double what Jamar has this year. I mean, didn't get to see him much with Joe. Didn't get to see the triumvirate that is supposed to drive this team together for more than a handful of snaps this year. And when they were together, it looked great. So unfortunate in that regard, but yeah, more than anything, if there's not a real good reason and he's not feeling great, I'm going very cautiously with T for the rest of the season,
because he's a building block, and it's no different than any of your other building blocks, and it's a scary head injury. This isn't an ankle sprain that you brace up.
It's not. You can't put a steel plate in his shoe to protect the toe, like you can with Joe Burrow returning from the turf toe thing.
I wonder if he'll wear one of the big
Guardian caps.
The Guardian cap. Yeah, I was going to say the big head things, but yeah,
big head
Guardian cap. Well, some players just opt to wear those, and I wonder if you even notice them if they're on. I know he's worn them in practice, I think. But
Romeo Doubs is one that I remember just from a team the Bengals have played against this year. There are a couple players on the Packers that wear them, and I would kind of say why not, unless it's noticeable and a detriment, to wear it to the player if you feel like it's going to affect your performance. But the other side, and I don't know, the other side of it is there is mixed evidence as to their effectiveness. Like, I don't think it hurts, but there was a big review of like high school players wearing them that found that it wasn't necessarily as effective as hoped. So I think mixed evidence as far as how helpful they are, but it couldn't hurt, right? There's also the neck brace thing that people wear, not like the neck roll that like old school linebackers wore, but like it kind of puts light pressure. I was reading about it yesterday. Puts light pressure on your jugular to increase blood flow.
Yeah, it's
in
just
your head.
Yeah. It's like a small thing. Yeah.
The idea is that the increased blood in the head can reduce the impact of some of the head blows. Kind of weird when you think about it that way, but hey, if it works, it works. As long as there's no downsides to it. So we'll see what T thinks about in the future, what all these players think about in the future, but just an unfortunate situation that T now finds himself in. And look, the season goes on. The Bengals play Baltimore this week. They're technically not dead in the water. Just feels like they're real dead in the water at this point, but they could put a real dent into Baltimore's playoff hopes as we see if the no team winning the AFC North for 3 straight years magic in the air continues this year. And we'll get to that matchup with the crossover very soon. That's our next episode, then a game preview after that. That's going to do it, though, for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.